Welcome back to another part. In this one, we're going to be modeling the abandoned church using the modular assets from the Vertex Studios, but it's just going to be half of modeling. We'll continue with the part 2, and this is the model that we will be modeling. So if you want to see how it looks, what you can do is you can go into the latest course and you can open up course assets and you'll see this whole building live. This is what we're going to be trying to model, but for now we're going to go back into our model level and we're going to model it right here. So before we start, I want to turn on the grid and I want to turn on the rotation and the scaling as well, because we're going to be using the help of the grid system to make sure that every modular asset lines up. So let's go into our abandoned village. And here you'll see 3 folders: materials, meshes, and textures. We're going to go into meshes, and we're not going to be using any of the props yet, but we're going to use the structure. And you'll see another folder called roof, but we're not going to use it yet. We're going to use these walls. Let's expand this window further. And here, first of all, we're going to start off with the front side of the church. So we're going to use this door frame wall. Let's bring this in. And as you can see, this looks quite good. It's already textured, but we're going to be texturing this using Vertex paint in the next part. So let's just model this for now. Let's rotate this on the 90-degree angle. To do this, press E and you'll have this rotation gizmo. One thing I forgot to mention in the navigation part is that when you're moving, as you can see, this is already going out of your camera. To prevent this from happening, you can hold shift and move, and your camera will follow the asset that you are moving. So that is something that I forgot to mention in the last part. As you can see, this is being moved with the grid system. Right now the increment is just 10, so I think this is good. Let's actually add 2 pillars by the front and back. So we're gonna have this right here. We're gonna rotate this 270 degrees, and let's line this up nicely. Now we have this over here, and to duplicate, what you can do is you can either click Control D to duplicate, but as you can see, whenever you click Control D, it moved a little. That we don't like, so let's delete it. So what we can do here is to hold Alt and then drag, and now it will create another, it will duplicate this and we'll have this. Right now, what we can do is either rotate, or we can do another trick, is to flip. So go into transform and mirror X. And now it mirrored the other way around, but we don't want this way. So let's go transform and mirror Y. And now this has already mirrored, and we can just move it out. This looks pretty good, and we're gonna add a wall with a window over here. So let's bring it out and let's line this up nicely. This looks all right. We won't care how it looks from the inside too much, because we're not gonna do any of the inside. So let's just focus on how it looks outside. So we're gonna duplicate this again and put this around here and line this up a little. This is not lining up nicely. What we can do is we can turn off the grid and try to line this nicely, and yeah, this is all right. But for this side, I want to have another I want to have the building L shaped, so I won't have a wall yet, but for this one, we're gonna add another wall like so, and we're gonna add another pillar. Let's just rotate this for now instead of using the mirror modifier. So also, if you want to see what's going on without any of the selection or the gizmo, you can press G to view everything without any of the overlays, and you can tap G. You can select anything, or you can just tap back G again to have that visible again. So I want to have this window wall around here again. So let's duplicate this, rotate this 90 degrees, and excuse me, and then place it down here. Again, let's line this up. It's not super aligned, so we're gonna try to line this up again like so. And as you can see, this is not lining up nicely. So what we can do is we can have this wall instead. This wall is a little bit bigger, so we're gonna use this instead. So let's just put it up here like this, line this up like that, turn back on our grid, and this looks all right. Pardon me. So first of all, let's actually add this wall again and add this pillar. So let's close this off for now, and we'll add another side in the next part. So line these up again like that, and let's turn off increment, and that will work okay. All right, so let's add the roof. First of all, for this front side, I kind of want this ornament looking roof over here. So let's drag and drop, rotate it 90 degrees, pull it up, and let's line this up nicely. I think that is aligned pretty nicely, and same back here, but I don't want this glass frame on top, so we're gonna use a normal triangular wall. Put this down. I think that might be too far down, so let's bring it downwards. Even bring it up a little so it looks all right, and bring it forward so it's aligned. We can check how aligned it is. That should be all right, but let's pull it down just a little. That's good enough. Excuse me. So we can go into our roof. These roofs are like a trim, so we're gonna use that in the edges of the roof. So let's put down this, rotate this 90 degrees, and bring it up, and let's place it over here. Make sure that these are aligned nicely. This is not. Then pull it back. And I think that is good enough. Let's duplicate this. And then let's use the mirror this time. We're going to mirror x-axis so that it turns the other way. Like that. And the roof is symmetrical, but this rooftop is not, so we can fix that. We can even scale it without the increments, so it looks like it's fitting nicely. and that is good. So we'll add more of the roof here. So let's bring down. I like how this broken roof is, so let's bring it over here, rotate it 90 degrees, bring it up again, and let's line these roof together. Now, if you have a reference photo that you want to follow and model according to that reference, feel free to do so. But for now, I'm gonna place it like this. It's not totally aligned yet, so let's bring it at image. And that should be good. All right, so that is one, and we're gonna bring in one more roof. Rotate it 90 degrees. Put it on this side. Line these together. A little more. Yeah, that looks good. And let's bring in one more roof that we haven't brought in. Then let's place it over here. And that looks alright. So let's duplicate this roof over here and place it right there. Right now it's not super aligned, so we're gonna move these like that. Make sure that these are aligned, and we've got a roof. So this is looking good already, and this will be the end of this first part. We're going to continue with the second part, where we'll model this side of the building. We're going to add a little crown molding, or like the church bell thing on top. And yeah, so I will see you in the next part. Welcome back to the second part of the modeling the church. In this part, I'll also show you a little bit about the outliner, where we can group things together so that your project, your level is more organized. And we'll also be modeling the second part of the church, and we'll also talk a little bit about vertex painting, and we'll use that to paint in some brick textures into these walls and windows that are already included in the Vertex Studio's modular assets. So let's get started. First of all, let's organize this this level a little bit more. So first of all, we do have a lot of static mesh in here, and we have a folder already named as lighting, which is our main lighting source that has been created already by creating a new level. So let's minimize this. And we do have a player start which we don't need, so let's delete this. And we have a floor over here, but we're gonna leave this alone. But all of the other church walls and roofs, we're gonna select everything together. So you can hold shift and click everything to the end, and you can click on this new little folder, and you'll have this new folder. What you can do is you can select that folder, right click, and edit and rename. Or what you can do is you can just click on F2 to rename this. So let's rename this church, and we have everything together in this folder. But one thing that you should know is whenever you bring in a new asset, it will bring into the level itself and not into the group. So whenever you have brought in a lot more stuff, you'll have to put it back in. So for this floor, let's create a new folder and just call it floor, so we don't have to locate that all the time. I just realized something is that I want to add a little bell tower sort of thing on top of this church. So I want to move this cracked roof to somewhere else. So let's just move it a little bit backwards and move this forward and bring it like this. Make sure these are aligned. That is the hardest part in modeling using modular assets, is to make sure that everything is aligned. This is okay, this is not too noticeable, so you can get away with it, but if you want to be perfect, you can keep tweaking until it looks good. So let's go back into structure and let's use the walls over here. And I want to have another window wall, so let's have this and rotate this 90 degrees. Place it over here like so. Let's make sure that it is good. So let's have the increment again around the halfway corner, just like that. That will do the job. And then we'll have another window over at the back, and let's align this wall a little bit nicer, like that. You can click Control Z to revert this change, and that is looking all right. Do we want this wall? No, we don't. Let's just have another wall over here, and we can move this a little bit like this, and we can use the pillar to cover up the seam like that. And we can duplicate this, rotate this 90 degrees, place it over here. Let's line it up nicely, and that looks all right. Yeah. So let's put down the triangular wall again, and let's see if it's centered enough. It is. And let's scale this down a little. So let's this, and this will require a lot of adjustments because they are not really in the right scale. Actually, let's revert this to the main size. I have a easier way to do this. So let's put down a roof first. Let's put down the roof trim, because we're gonna have to scale them exactly the same. So the way to do it nicely is that put down the roof together until they look nice, and then we'll scale everything down at the same time. So let's down a little, and yeah, that looks all right. Bring in one of the roof. One thing to let you know is that we don't have to be perfect in lining these up, because we're going to cover these up with some ivy, some vegetation later on, because it should be abandoned. So let's bring this up to the left a little. Kind of like that. It looks fine. Let's just duplicate this for now, and duplicate one more, and a little bit more. Now, if you like how this looks, this should already be okay with what you're going for, but for me, I want this to be a smaller roof. So let's click on this together, and let's scale down so the scale matches. A little bit upwards. Now this looks all right. So I think this looks good, even though this is a little bit sticking out over here. I think it should be fine. So yeah, I think that looks all right. So let's place down some church door over here. Let's rotate this 90 degrees. That looks great. And then let's place down some of the windows. So here, rotate this, rotate 90 degrees, and place it down over here. And let's duplicate this again, rotate this 90 degrees. Oh, 90. Oh, my controls are weird right now. Yeah, just like that. So let's put this a little bit inwards, and then we can duplicate this 90 degrees over here as well. But we're not going to be using the backside of the church too much, so we don't really need to care about it too much. That's why we're going to leave this roof that is sticking out. That is okay. Turn 90 degrees, put this in over here. Then another one. Oh, I didn't hold Alt. Right there. It's good. Now we're going to put down a little bell tower up top. So let's put down this little wall over here. Let's rotate this 90 degrees and place it over here. And let's bring this pillar up. Actually, I don't think the pillar will work too much, so let's just bring this wall and bring it up. You can see it has a little bit of that wall sticking out a little, so make sure that these are aligned nicely like that. And let's rotate this 180 degrees, and let's line this up again. And we can just duplicate this wall. That looks all right. Okay, now we go back into the roof, and we'll have this little cone roof over here. So let's bring it up, rotate this 90 degrees, and place it over here. Looks all right. Make sure that this is nicely centered like that, and let's select these walls also. So to do that, you can hold shift and select all these meshes, and once you have selected, you can push it downwards until it looks right. So let's bring it back a little, just like that, and that looks all right. Maybe we can bring it up even a little bit more. So let's go back into structure again. We do have these wide windows, but it looks the small white windows over here. Let's rotate this 180 degrees and place it in there. Then let's duplicate this again, rotate this 180 degrees and place it outwards like that. That looks okay. And let's go to our props, and we have this little church cross, and we want to put it right on top over here so it looks like a church. So rotate this 90 degrees, maybe even move it downwards a little, and there we have it. We have modeled our church building, and it looks good. But I noticed that this has a little gap, so let's select everything again. Make sure you have selected this as well. So let's bring it to the left a little, maybe even more left. that and move it downwards a little, and now it should be good. Okay, so the next thing we're gonna do in this part is vertex paint. Vertex paint is basically you have a mesh and you paint in some of the vertex colors to mix between a few textures together. Luckily for you, you don't really have to set up all of the vertex paints, because it can be a little bit tricky as a beginner to set all those up. So luckily for you, with this pack, you already have the vertex paint set up already. So to visualize how this looks, let's do this together. Let's select a wall, for instance, and then let's go into the mode and then choose mesh paint mode. And here we have the colors, weight, and textures. We're going to be using just the colors, and here we're going to select the paint, and you can see if you hover onto the mesh, you can see all these vertices and a brush on your screen. You can change the size over here, how big you want, and the strength of the brush. So let's tone it down to about 0.29 and strength to about 0.4. And here we have the channels. This is the most important part. So let's go to the channels and just select the red. If you have selected others, you can just uncheck them. And we only have the vertex painting on the red channel for these assets, so we're going to be using that. So we have a paint color set to white. Right now, if you paint, you can see nothing is happening. That is because we have to use black in order to paint the red channel. So what we can do is we can either click on this little button over here or tap X to swap between black and white. So right now we are on black and on red channel. So if we paint, you can see the bricks being chipped away like that, and it looks great because it already has some blending techniques that uses height map, which looks realistic. And to erase it, just go back to white color again by tapping X and erase it again. And you can paint where you want to paint, and having a good reference as to these brick walls will help you a lot in terms of creating realistic chip away effects. So that is a good way to utilize the reference and pure ref to paint in. The one thing I like to do is to select all the walls that we're going to be painting. So let's select all the walls. We don't really want to paint the backside, so we can just Ctrl Z and deselect these. But the sides we do, like this, and the pillar over here. Once we've selected all of the walls, we do need these as well, so let's select this. And once we have selected all the walls, we're going to go into mesh paint. Now go into paint, and we can paint everything together at once. Hold this down. I do want this bottom edge to be a little bit more chipped away like this, and a little bit like around here, maybe in the corner. So now, because we have selected all of these parts together, we can just paint in the corner and everything will be painted together. One thing is that if you don't want to keep tapping X, you can hold Shift and click to delete these parts away as well. So let's tone down the size of our brush. Just use a smaller brush and paint away like our heart intends to do so. And we will have details being added to these walls like that. Let's see, like having the bottom part of these walls being just bricks, and maybe some parts of the wall just having really chipped away like these. Let's paint this pillar for now. Maybe by the corners of this. brick pillar and a little bit more underneath, like that. You can have a huge block like that as well, maybe a little bit onto here, a little bit around here, and around here like that. Maybe this is being a lot more worn down by weather effects like that. Maybe delete it a little, might be a little too much. So and there you go, you have successfully mesh painted. So if you look, this is all right. Now, as you can see, whenever you get up close, see this is being popped in and popped out. It's because of the LOD. So to change this, select on this, browse on the details panel, and you'll see static mesh, and click on this and double click on this mesh over here. Over here we're gonna do instead of LOD auto, we're gonna just change to LOD 0, and here we're gonna just use number of LODs just used to 1, and then let's save this. Apply changes, yes, and now it won't pop anymore. So if you're facing that issue, you can do this. For instance, this one is facing some issues, so let's click on this, let's double click on that. Here we're going to change to LOD 0, change this to number of LODs to 1, and then let's save this, close this, and then click on yes, and now it won't pop anymore. Now this is looking good. So that is it for the part 2 of the modeling section. So in the next part, we're gonna talk a little bit more about blueprints and group this together as a blueprint so that we can use it in the actual level. So I'll see you guys in the next part. Hey guys, welcome to another part. This one's going to be a little short one because I'll be talking about blueprints, and I'll just explain just a brief explanation about blueprints, because for this particular purpose where we're creating a cinematic environment, we just need to know a little bit about them, and we'll also turn the static mesh that we created in the previous parts, which is the abandoned church. We'll turn all those static mesh combined into a blueprint, because right now everything is on its own. We can still move them around, but when we turn it into a blueprint, it'll be easier for us to move around and easier to manage. So I'll be showing you just that. So let's go into Unreal Engine. This is what we have made in the last 2 parts. Right now, before we do anything about blueprints, we're gonna have to group all these static mesh together in one group so that it's easier for us to select. So just drag and drop it into the church group over there. So now, what is a blueprint? Well, blueprint is basically like a scripted addition to your game, because Unreal Engine is a game engine. So it can either be a event, function, or variables, or in our case, it will be our object construction. So we'll group everything together like a pre-built house that we can just drag and drop into. So all of these static mesh will be combined into one blueprint. But before we do that, I just noticed that this transition right here doesn't work well. So let's go back into Mesh Paint, and let's... Oh, this is because of the LOD that we have talked about before. So let's do this, and then let's save. Now it should be fine. Sorry about the delay. So let's turn this into a blueprint. So what we're going to do is we're going to select all the static mesh within the church, And if you want to make sure that you have selected everything, try moving it and see if it's going with your cursor. If something is not being selected, you have to select it first. So once you've selected everything, you go onto the top toolbar and click on this little icon which looks like a graph. Click on this and let's convert selection to blueprint class. And now here we have different creation methods, but I'm not gonna get into too in depth of everything right here. You can read it here if you want to learn a little bit more about it. But what we're gonna use is a harvest component mode. And right here, the blueprint name, we're gonna call it BP Church. BP stands for blueprint, of course. And as for path, we're gonna choose a path to abandoned village. Just click on this, maybe in meshes, and then let's click on OK. And then let's select. Now you'll get a new window. This is a blueprint. So basically what a blueprint does is that now you can see this has been located already. So once you put this down, you'll see everything is grouped together and you can mess around with it without losing any of the changes that you made in the modeling phase. So that's why blueprints are very useful. Sometimes you would go into new projects with different models that you modeled, and then if you want to paste it down in another level that you want to do, what you can do is just make them blueprints and drop it down into the main level that you're doing. But right now, as you can see, the pivot point is right in the center of all these mesh. So we're gonna have to change that. We want to make it centered, but also at the bottom of the mesh. So to do that, double click on the blueprint that you've made. You'll see on the left, everything, all of the mesh is here. So we're gonna select everything over here, and then let's actually make this window a little bit smaller, and let's see how it looks. So let's move this up right now. So as soon as you move up, you can see this pivot is being changed. So let's place it around there, so it's at the bottom of the church while maintaining the center of the entire thing. So I think that looks all right. And after that, one thing you have to make sure that you do is before you click out of the selection, you have to change everything to static over on the right side on the details panel. If you don't see the details panel, you can go into Windows and click on details, and you'll see this window over here. Change into static mesh, because or else when you render things, when you render out the full cinematic later on, the static mesh will move. And this was one of the problems that I have faced earlier in my Unreal Engine days, and I spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out what was causing it, and this was the issue. So since you have selected everything and click on static, everything should be static. Once that's done, please click on compile, because it won't be saved until you click compile. And let's save it as well. So right now we have our blueprint ready to be plopped down anywhere we want. So let's test it out. Let's bring in our blueprint again, and now it is nicely placed. I know it's a little bit more upwards than the pivot point, but that is not a big deal, because we'll still be able to control everything quite nicely. So that's it for this part. I'll see you in the next one. Welcome back to another part. In this one, we'll talk about landscapes, and I'll introduce you for the first time the landscapes, which are very important in creating your big levels, because they can be sculpted, they can be manipulated any way you like. And the landscape materials have a lot of features that normal static mesh don't have. So we're going to be using our landscape to create our base floor for our environment. So yeah, we're going to be creating the first landscape as well, and I'll also show you a few tools that we're going to be using in the next few parts in this course. So let's go into Unreal Engine. So in the last part, we have successfully made this into blueprint. Now we don't really need this level anymore. So let's save this level and let's go into our levels folder and let's click on abandoned church and let's open it. So this is the level that we'll be using to construct our main environment, as you all know. But right now we have this floor which we don't need, so let's delete this. And we also have this player start which we don't need, so let's delete this. In order to create a landscape, they are not an actor, so you can't search it through here. They have to be accessed through a different mode, which is up here, and click on landscape over here. So once that is done, you can see how big this is, but since you don't have anything to measure the scale, we'll have to make sure to use something that can help us measure the scale. So first of all, let's bring back our floor and let's delete this player start. And in UE4 mannequin mobile, go into mesh, and then you will see this little mannequin that we have added through the Epic Games Unreal Engine market. So let's bring this in, and now we can see how big this human-sized figure is. So this can help us a lot in terms of measuring the scale for the landscape. So let's delete back the floor. The reason we added back the floor is to make sure that this is at the right level of flooring that we would need. Let's go into landscape, and you will receive this massive green grid. Because right now what we have is 100 units above the ground level. So let's zero this out. So you can see this is now at the floor level, and you can see how big this is. Right now I kind of want it a little bit bigger, just so that we can make sure to use most of the stuff. So let's change the number of components into 9 and 9, so it is evened out. Now this is a little bit bigger. Now before you create the landscape, make sure that you have enabled the edit layers. If not for that, we cannot use different layers to paint over different stuff or sculpt in different layers like a Photoshop project. So after that, we can click on create. If you actually want to use a height map, you can actually put it into here, but we're not going to use any height maps. So before we click on create, let's actually move this a little bit towards this side. I think that will be okay. So let's click on create, and now this will be created. So we have 3 tools up top for the landscape in landscape mode. We have a manage, where we can manage different layers. We can import different stuff into here as well. We can manage each different sections like this, which we'll not get into, but we'll get into the sculpt tools, which we can manipulate the ground like this, but it will be in the future part. And we'll also talk about painting, so we can texture the landscape nicely. But that is all for this part. I'll see you in the next one. Welcome back to another section. In this one, we'll not be doing any of the activities together, but I will explain about materials and instances in Unreal Engine. And I'll also show you how to create material instances and why we should use material instances over the base material for any asset that we're going to use, and why is it so important, and how they are 2 different types of materials. So let's go into Unreal Engine so that I can demonstrate all of these stuff that I mentioned. So here we have the mannequin that we downloaded from Unreal Engine Market, and as you can see, it already has some textures to it. So right now we have a material over here and a material instance over here. So to create material instances, all you have to do is you have to have the base material first, right click and create material instance over here. And what I like to do is for material instances, I like to set the prefix to mi and leave the material's prefix as m, so we can differentiate between the two. But it also says material instance over here by the tags. So if you click on this, it will show you all the material instances that we have in this folder. But why we need to use material instance is because in materials, once we want to make a change, it takes some time to compile, to apply the material, and then to save. But for material instances, everything is being calculated real time, and we don't have to compile or apply them again. And you can have as many instances as you want for different asset, but the same type and the same material usage, and you can have so many different colors of the same thing. So let me demonstrate how long it takes for you to compile everything. So let's say I want to change the color of this mannequin. So let's go into the base material over here, and we have this body color over here. So let's change the default value to orange. Now you might think that, yeah, well, this is updating in real time. But see, if I press Ctrl Z to revert the changes, it doesn't change in real time anymore, because Unreal way of drawing all these textures in, the materials take longer than material instances. So what we need to do here is to click on apply until this is being changed. And even that, some of the part will not be changed, so you need to click on this material and then it will change. So that's why we're using material instance over here. Plus, the material instance is very cool because you can have different parameters exposed to sliders or numbers like this on the details panel, where you can change different stuff without going and meddling with all the nodes. So for instance, if I were to, let's set this material instance as the main texture over here and double click this, and in body color, let's change this for now. And it's orange now. But if I press Ctrl Z, now it updates instantly. This is why it is so important for us to use material instances over the base material, so that we can visualize changes very quickly and efficiently. And it is also very, very light on your VRAM when you create material instances that is based off of the base material. So now that you know the difference between materials and material instances, in the next section, we'll create our very first landscape material. So I'll see you there.